Chapter 14, Population Zero. Three powers are battling in a parking lot. One is fading fast. I have to hurry. That guy's fighting my battle. I can't let him die in my absence. Brian leaps over a row of flaming cars and into the center of the fray, just as Rapture is about to deliver the final blow through Yamura's chest. Rapture drops his prey to the ground and turns to Brian, grinning. Brian stands with confidence against his foe. The flames reflect off the shiny new armor and cause Rapture to squint for a moment. Back for another round, I see. You may have a new look, but I can still recognize your energy. I'm flattered. Now come on, shouts Brian, powering up through the biosuit and radiating his aura out like a powerful wind. Rapture shields his face as Brian's energy slaps him with a huge gust. As Rapture moves his arms, Brian is in his face with a devastating punch to the jaw. Rapture howls in pain, blood spraying from his lips as several teeth fly out in a red mist. Brian drops his level, thrusting his fist up into Rapture's exposed ribs. Brian remembers what Scarab did earlier and focuses his energy into the gauntlets, charging up a double-handed energy blast. Brian unleashes the blast into Rapture's face, melting off the top layer of his scales. Rapture howls in agony as blood pours from his burned face. Boils rise up and pop. Brian quickly draws a syringe and stabs Rapture in the cheek, injecting the temporary antibody. Rapture falls back, hitting the ground as his body returns to human form. I did it, says Brian with a huge sigh of relief. I wouldn't celebrate yet, says Peril, kicking the door out from a car and stepping out from the flames. Brian runs at Peril, but without even the bat of an eye, he's swatted away with an invisible telekinetic fist. Shots appear from nowhere, beating Brian down into the ground. Peril raises his arms, bolts of electricity streaking down from his fingertips. Brian screams in pain as Peril sends the electricity through his body. Several guards run up and lower their guns down to Brian's head, but Peril throws his arms up, sending the energy through several of the guards. This is my fight, screams Peril. The guards open fire on Peril, who sends his energy at them as well. Peril suddenly drops to one knee as a bullet splatters through his shoulder. He growls in anger and darts to the guard's face, grabbing him by the neck. Peril screams with rage, crushing the man's throat. He then feels the tingle in the back of his head and turns to see that Brian is gone. He turns back the other way, just in time to be kicked in the face. He throws his weight back, landing on his feet and skidding back several inches. You got distracted, coughs Brian. Peril growls and runs at Brian with several quick jabs. Brian dodges and catches him by the wrist. Brian quickly spins into Peril closer, thrusting a second syringe up through the bottom of Peril's chin. Brian struggles and looks down to see Peril holding the needle tip between his fingers. Peril snaps the needle and decks Brian in the face. Brian shakes off the attack and leaps at Peril, throwing several kicks. Peril dodges and retaliates with a right hook to the face. Brian drops his level and kicks Peril's feet out from under him. As Peril falls back, Brian leaps onto his chest, driving his knees into the boy as they hit the ground. Brian pulls out a third syringe and thrusts it into Peril's chest. Peril throws a hand up to block the strike and headbutts Brian off of him. The two leap back, both panting with exhaustion. I can't let him break this syringe. It's the last one I have. I have to take him down, but he's too skilled. He counters everything I throw at him. Brian runs at Peril again, but darts to the side, his scanner picking up a faint energy flicker. Brian grins as Peril leaps into the path of an energy blast. The blast hits Peril in the back, and he turns around to see Yamura lying on the ground, one hand outstretched. Eat that, you little prick, whispers Yamura before passing out. His hair reverts to normal, and his energy plummets to 0. Brian leaps at Peril, decking him in the back of the head several times. Peril is rocked by the hard blows and barely manages to throw Brian off of him. Brian holds his chest plate, panting with exhaustion. Peril grins, taking a step towards him. The boy's face suddenly grows white as he is unable to take another step. "What?" whispers Peril, confused. "You got shot earlier. That gave me a nice opening," says Brian. Peril looks down to see the empty syringe sticking out of his wound. "That's not fair," whispers Peril, falling to his face. A small cluster of auras draws Brian's attention, and he slowly turns around to see more of Khan's guards, standing in a row with their guns drawn and fixated on him. Suddenly, Coach E plows through the men with a tackle, like they were a deck of cards. The men fall to the ground and fumble for their weapons, but the former football coach pummels the guards before they can regain their composure. "Thanks, but what happened to you trying to reach the hospital?" coughs Brian. Coach E shakes his head, indicating that Nirvana did not survive. He quickly changes the subject to avoid his shame for having caused the loss of a human life. "You seem to have done all right yourself, kid. You took all of them down." "Actually, only 2 of them. That guy helped me with the others," says Brian, pointing to Jake. "And the kid?" Coach E asks, glancing down at Peril. "He was manipulated by Khan and turned evil. I have to make him pay for what he's done." Instead of opening fire, the remaining Sakati and Special Operations Forces begin to climb into their vans. "They're retreating," Brian says, noticing the men gathering their wounded and climbing into the vehicles. Brian raises his gauntlets, which begin to glow with a bright blue light. The virtual biosuit channels the energy produced by the GX parasite and focuses it where it's needed. In this way, he does not have to undergo a physical transformation spurred on by the metabolic cellular growth as the others infected with the parasite do. "Let him go," Coach E says, lowering Brian's arm. "We need to leave." "We have them on the run. I can be anyone that Khan sends now. I'm not afraid." "We need to keep priority number 1 is tracking the civilian buses. I've already seen several leave the town, headed north. Khan's assassins aren't going to help us get everyone back, no matter how good it feels killing them." Brian nods, knowing that Coach E is right. One of the guards that Coach E knocked down begins to laugh. "What's so funny? Khan has the upper hand on you. While you were fighting here, he was using his other men to round up the townspeople and take them to his other labs. They'll all become biowarriors shortly, and if they don't, they'll be disposed of." Brian kicks the man in the face, knocking him out. "I have to track Khan down and locate his other labs. Everyone is at his mercy, and mercy is something I don't think he has. I have to hurry." "No, we have to hurry," says Coach E, smiling. "Right. Let's go find Khan." Brian smiles back, glad that Coach E is on his side. Not only is the older man smart, but he's also physically able to hold his own. Brian will need both of these qualities to take down Khan and his remaining parasitically enhanced soldiers. Raquel emerges from the school and joins them. "Go on without me. I'll see if I can save the Sakari boy and meet up with you at Safe House 7. Coach E nods, pushing Brian towards his pickup truck. "Don't linger too long. Khan will send a cleanup crew when those operatives that manage to escape contact their superiors." Brian and Coach E leave the school in the teacher's truck and return to his home on the outskirts of town. Brian waits in the vehicle while Coach E spends about 20 minutes, gathering his belongings into 3 suitcases and a couple of backpacks. The man dwells for a moment, looking at the framed photos hung on the walls of him and his wife. He finally takes the pictures down and undoes the backings, slipping the photos out and into an old chemistry book to keep them flat. He hopes that one day he'll be able to return, but until then he had better gather all of his important belongings. As Kochi gathers up all the money stashed in a small safe underneath his desk, and some spare magazines for his handgun, he suddenly remembers his pit bull, Spurrier. "Spurrier! Come here, boy!" Kochi whistles. After no response, he goes to the back door to make sure that the dog door is closed. There's no way that he got out. I locked the house up tight before I went back to the school. A terrible realization then falls upon Kochi. Khan not only took all of the citizens somewhere undisclosed, he took their pets as well. Kochi takes a couple of trash bags and fills them with all of his canned goods and perishables. He locks his house back up after turning off the breaker box and unloading the contents of his refrigerator and freezer into 2 large coolers that he uses when he goes fishing during his summer off months. He puts everything into the back of his truck before looking over his home in sadness. The home holds many memories, some good, some bad. 3 years ago, after battling the HIV that she was infected with by the Conco, his wife became ill. With the treatments no longer available, she died. Kochi fights back the tears. He knows that he must stay strong. Brian now depends on him. Together they have to track down Khan and save the other citizens of Clavemont and make him pay for all the lives he's destroyed. We'll head to your house next so that you can pick up anything you need. Don't expect to come back for quite a while. Pack most of your clothes. I hate to say this, but also get anything valuable. Watches, jewelry, any coins or money, electronics. We may eventually have to pawn them, Kochi says to Brian, who only nods, thinking about his parents. If you have any coolers, fill them up with the food in your fridge. We'll stop somewhere and pick up ice before we leave town. They pull away from Kochi's home and don't see any of Khan's special operations forces on the roads as they head to Brian's home. Only a block away from the school, they decide to come to it last to give Khan's men time to clear out. Running into any more of them would be disastrous if even one of them was a fighter of the caliber of Rapture or Peril. Brian climbs out of the truck and goes inside his home. Unlike Kochi's home, it seems that someone has already searched it carefully. He finds that all of his mother and father's file cabinets are empty, and both of their computers are gone. It does not seem that anything else valuable was taken, suggesting that it was not looters. Brian's spirits lift for a moment, thinking that his parents may have escaped and managed to come back home. This thought becomes less likely as Brian begins to pack things up and does not find any kind of note left for him. Had my father escaped Khan and known that I was in danger, he would have left me a note before coming to look for me, wouldn't he? Brian's thoughts jump all around and he forces himself to block them out and focus on the task at hand. As he packs up his clothing, he notices that his hamster, Rowdy Roddy Hamster, is missing. Kochi had told him on the drive over that his dog Spurrier was missing from his home. What horrible plans does that monster Khan have for the townspeople and their pets? Brian wonders. Brian finishes packing up his clothing and most valuable possessions, then begins to fill another bag with things to pawn. After doing this, he then unloads his fridge and drags all the bags out to Kochi's truck. Kochi helps him load the truck up, and then they're back on the road. They pass an abandoned gas station, and Brian wraps a shirt around his hand before punching through the glass and breaking inside. In the building, Brian goes straight for the cash register and rips the drawer out of it. He pockets the money left inside and then takes several cloth bags down from a shelf and fills them with things to help them on their own. Flashlights, batteries, tools, more food and water. All of these things Brian loads up, while Kochi fills up several gallon jugs of gasoline. They didn't even have time to shut off the pumps, Kochi whispers to himself, after he has Brian hit the authorization screen on the cash register to allow him to pump. Brian fills the remaining room of the truck bed up with the newly scavenged things, and then gets several bags of ice and pours them into the coolers. After a few minutes, they're back on the road and headed out of town. I think we should head for Atlanta, and then get a hotel room and prepare to stay up there for a while. Atlanta's the nearest location of a Conco facility that we know of, Brian says. That's a good plan. We'll watch the building and look for Khan or any of his goons that we recognize. Once we have a plan of attack, we move in and take Khan hostage. With him, we should have no problem getting the location of where he took everyone else. Raquel stands over Jake's motionless body. She wonders how amazing the Sakari spirit inside of him is to have helped him survive against such powerful forces. Thank you. I am sorry, but I won't be able to repay you for your help just yet, she whispers, seeing headlights approaching from the distance. Limping away, Raquel tries to get out of sight as quickly as possible. A black limousine pulls up to the stadium, and Hayanaro exits first to open Khan's door for him. Antonio Khan steps out onto the gravel, his expensive shoes shining, even in the dim light of the remaining street lamps. What a disappointment, he sighs. Rapture, Peril, Scarab, Raven, Demolition, and Pinpoint, along with numerous Sakati and human guards lie unconscious or dead scattered across the grounds. The best genetic soldiers I could create, and not one of you could defeat 2 teenagers and an old man, Khan growls, grabbing Shesha by the throat and jarring him awake. He created some kind of chemical that shut down GX. I can't communicate with the parasite at all, Shesha whispers, trying to defend himself against Khan's chastisement. The boy is really that intelligent? Maybe he really was the perfect candidate after all. Khan wonders in astonishment. I knew that the son of 2 of my top minds would be a logical choice, but I never dreamed he would be so powerful initially. With his mind and the fact that he controls GX and not the other way around, he could become unrivaled in power. No, he may be smart, but it's more likely that one of those traitors gave him this magical serum when they gave him the virtual biosuit. It is a shame that people can only be killed once. I would love to resurrect Jonas and kill him myself. I will just have to settle for the honor of Miss Melendez when she's located. Khan pulls out a cell phone and contacts the regional director of the Conco Chicago branch, Trevor Castile. I believe the hypothesis tested out tonight was proven to be correct. In response, I want you to begin focusing on targeting candidates for selection based on higher intelligence over already experienced soldiers. It seems that a boy with no prior fighting ability can be enhanced with GX beyond the capacities of even a professional killer for hire. Shesha catches the meaning behind Khan's words and feels a chill run throughout his entire body. You think he was superior to us because he was smarter? Shesha shouts. Yes, I do. Smarter, however, is an understatement. The boy is the son of the 2 most brilliant scientific minds I've ever discovered. Shesha growls in anger, beginning to feel his connection to the GX parasite once more. It is still faint, though, as if a great distance separates them. Feeling better? Khan asks, sensing Rapture's energy rising slowly. Rapture's eyes transform into yellow pits, with thin slits for pupils. His fingernails lengthen into sharp claws. I will find this boy and kill him. Then I will prove that I am superior. An operative crouched on the ground calls out to Khan. Boss, this one isn't one of ours, he shouts. Khan, Rapture, and Hayanaro walk over to the operative to find the unconscious form of Jake lying on the gravel. It's the other boy, Rapture growls, raising his claws. No. Bring him along. He is going to help us recover the virtual biosuit. And our other property, Khan says, staying Rapture's hand.